She was one day away from turning 17 when she disappeared into a house she would not leave for 10 years. The Cleveland Kidnappings. Amanda Berry, 2003. She was 16, one day away from her birthday. She trusted the wrong stranger and vanished into a house the world would forget. This is the story of Amanda Berry. Amanda Berry was 16 years old, just one day away from turning 17. On the evening of April 21st, 2003, she finished her shift at a Burger King in Cleveland, Ohio, and stepped outside to walk home. She was wearing her work uniform, thinking about her birthday, her family, and the normal life waiting for her the next morning. The route she took was familiar, one she had walked many times before. There was no sense of danger in the air, no warning that anything about this night would be different. As she walked along the street, a car pulled up beside her. The man inside spoke calmly and smiled. He told her he had found a lost puppy and asked for help. Then he added that she looked tired and offered to drive her the rest of the way home. Amanda hesitated, but only briefly. Trusting him, she got into the car. It was a decision that would erase everything she knew about freedom, time, and safety in a matter of minutes. The car did not take her home. Instead, it stopped in front of a small house at 2207 Seymour Avenue. Once inside, the tone of the night changed instantly. The door was locked. Her hands were restrained. The room she was taken to was dark and unfamiliar. In those first moments, Amanda already understood that whatever was happening, she was not in control anymore. The next day, April 22nd, 2003, should have been Amanda's 17th birthday. Her family waited for her to come home. They tried to call her phone. They told themselves she was probably with friends, that she would walk through the door at any moment. But she never did. As the hours passed, birthday candles remained unlit, and celebration slowly turned into fear. Police searches began. Missing person posters went up across the city. Amanda Berry's face joined the growing wall of the disappeared. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. With no witnesses and no physical evidence, the case slowly began to fade from public attention. But inside that locked house on Seymour Avenue, Amanda was still alive. At first, she was completely isolated. She did not know where she was. She did not know if anyone was looking for her. Time inside the house did not move normally. There were no clocks, no calendars, only the sound of footsteps and the opening and closing of doors. Sometimes food arrived, sometimes silence arrived instead. Fear was constant, and hope felt dangerous. Over time, Amanda began to notice that she was not entirely alone. She heard faint sounds from somewhere else in the house, the movement of someone behind another door, the sound of breathing that did not belong to her. She did not yet know their names, but Michelle Knight was already inside that house. And soon enough, another girl would arrive too. Months passed, then years. Amanda's body changed in ways she could not control. She began to feel sick more often. Then she realized the truth. She was pregnant. Inside a place built for captivity, a life was beginning without permission. Fear took on a new shape, but so did determination. From that moment forward, Amanda was no longer trying to survive only for herself. After realizing she was pregnant, Amanda's fear deepened into something heavier and more complex. Inside that locked house, there was no doctor, no medical care, no one to explain what was happening to her body. Every pain, every change, every moment of weakness unfolded in isolation. She did not know if the child inside her would survive. More frightening than that, she did not know if she would. Yet, as the months passed, fear slowly shared space with a fragile instinct to protect. For the first time since her abduction, Amanda's will to survive was no longer only for herself. In 2006, Amanda gave birth inside Captivity. There was no hospital room, no sterile environment, no comforting voices. The child entered the world in silence and captivity, just like her mother lived. Amanda named her daughter Jocelyn. From that moment on, survival took on a new meaning. Every breath Amanda took, every hour she endured, every day she stayed alive was now for the small life that depended entirely on her. Jocelyn grew up knowing only the walls of that house. To her, the rooms were normal. The locked doors were normal. Even the man who controlled everything around them felt like a fixed part of her world. Amanda tried to shield her daughter as much as she could from the reality of their situation. She created routines. She invented small moments of joy. She taught her how to read, how to talk, how to dream within four walls. Jocelyn did not know she was living inside a prison. She did not know that her entire world was built on captivity. Sometimes, small privileges appeared without explanation. Jocelyn was occasionally allowed into the backyard. Rare holidays passed with wrapped gifts that felt strangely out of place in such a controlled environment. To a child, these moments felt like kindness. To Amanda, they felt unsettling, unpredictable, and dangerous. At any moment, everything could be taken away. As the years passed, Amanda learned how to survive under strict rules. Silence became protection. Obedience became necessary. Fear became permanent. Yet, even in this constant tension, one thing never stopped growing: her determination to keep her daughter alive, safe, and as untouched by horror as possible. Outside the house, the world slowly began to move on. Posters peeled from walls, news coverage faded. Amanda Berry's case slipped quietly into the archive of unsolved disappearances. Detectives continued to carry the file on paper, but in reality, the investigation had become what law enforcement calls a cold case. No witnesses emerged, no physical evidence surfaced. The search moved forward only on memory and fading hope. While public attention disappeared, one man never stopped speaking. Amanda's father returned to the cameras year after year. On every birthday, he stood before reporters with the same message. His daughter was still missing, and he still believed she could be alive. As time passed, the microphones became fewer, the questions became shorter, but he did not stop showing up. And in 2013, when the phone finally rang, the words he heard felt impossible after 10 years of waiting. His daughter had been found alive. Inside Seymour Avenue, time had never stopped. It had only moved more slowly, more cruelly. 10 years passed in silence. The world moved on. But inside that house, time never stopped. By 2013, Amanda had spent 10 years inside captivity. Jocelyn was now 6 years old. She asked questions. She noticed locked doors. She noticed routines that did not feel like the outside world she saw briefly through windows or television screens. Amanda understood something dangerous and powerful at the same time. The moment was approaching when her daughter would begin to see the truth. And with that realization, Amanda herself began to change. What once felt impossible slowly began to feel necessary. For 10 years, survival had meant staying quiet. Now survival meant something else. It meant taking a risk no matter the cost. By the beginning of 2013, routines inside the house had grown dangerously familiar. Fear no longer arrived as shock, it lived there permanently. But now, fear was no longer stronger than the thought of Jocelyn growing older inside those walls. Amanda could see the questions forming in her daughter's eyes. She could feel the moment approaching when explanations would no longer be avoided. For the first time in 10 years, silence felt more dangerous than resistance. Amanda began to observe her surroundings differently, not as a prisoner, but as someone searching for weakness. She listened more carefully for footsteps. She watched the locks. She noticed which doors felt solid and which ones felt tired. In a life built entirely on routine, even the smallest irregularity mattered, and one day she felt it. The faint instability in one of the doors. It was not open, it was not broken, but it was no longer unmovable. At first, she told herself not to hope. Hope had been too dangerous for too long, but the thought returned anyway, growing louder in her mind each day. The door was no longer just a door. It became a possibility, a question, a risk, and eventually a decision. For 10 years, survival had meant compliance. Now, survival required disobedience. Amanda understood what failure would cost. She understood what success might cost too. For herself, she'd endured everything. For Jocelyn, she could not endure this anymore. The plan was never detailed. It did not need to be. It was built on instinct, fear, and the desperate need for one moment of force. She waited. She listened. She waited again, and when the house fell into its familiar silence, Amanda moved. She gathered everything she had, 10 years of endurance, 10 years of suppression, 10 years of waiting, and pushed. Amanda pushed with everything her body had left. The door resisted at first, as it had for 10 years. Then something shifted. The lock weakened. The frame cracked. With another forceful odor, the door gave way just enough for her to break through. On the other side was not freedom yet, but for the first time in a decade, there was space. There was air. There was sound that did not belong to captivity. She ran to the front of the house and began to scream. Her voice was raw, unfamiliar even to herself. A man passing by heard the cries and stopped. His name was Charles Ramsey. At first, he could not understand what he was witnessing. A woman trapped inside a house shouting through a broken door, saying she'd been kidnapped for years. The words did not sound real. They sounded impossible. Ramsey helped her force the door open further and guided her to a neighbor's phone. For the first time in over 10 years, Amanda held a phone in her own hands. Her voice trembled as she dialed 911. What followed would become one of the most unforgettable emergency calls in American history. She told the operator that she had been kidnapped, that she had been missing for 10 years, and that she was finally free. Within minutes, police arrived at 2207 Seymour Avenue. They entered the house that had hidden unimaginable suffering for more than a decade. Inside, they found Michelle Knight. They found Gina DeJesus. And they found a child who had never known a world beyond locked doors. Amanda carried Jocelyn out of the house. The street was filled with flashing lights, neighbors, officers, and strangers who had no idea how close they had lived to such horror for so many years. The world outside had continued without them, but in that moment, time finally caught up. Authorities quickly took control of the scene. Ariel Castro was arrested that same day, stunned and silent as officers led him away from the house that had hidden his crimes for more than a decade. Inside, evidence emerged that confirmed what the three women had endured: chains, locked rooms, restraints, and a living environment built entirely on control. Cleveland awoke to a story that felt impossible to believe, yet too real to deny. Amanda and the others were taken to the hospital. Doctors treated long-hidden injuries, physical weakness, and the psychological shock of returning to the world after so many years in captivity. For Jocelyn, the outside world felt overwhelming from the very beginning. Noise was frightening. Open spaces felt strange and endless. School was confusing at first, surrounded by children who had grown up with a freedom she had never known. Psychologists worked carefully with her, guiding her through fear without forcing memory. Amanda chose to protect her daughter fiercely from cameras and headlines. While the world wanted to see the child born in captivity, Amanda wanted her to grow up as a child born into privacy. For Amanda herself, freedom still felt unreal. Even after passing through hospital doors, part of her mind continued to wait for the sound of locks. The trial that followed revealed the full scale of the crimes. Ariel Castro pleaded guilty to multiple counts of kidnapping, sexual assault, and abuse. In 2013, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 1,000 years. Justice, in its harshest form, was finally placed in words. 1 month later, Castro was found dead in his prison cell by suicide. For some, it ended the chapter. For the survivors, the story was far from over. Amanda chose to live quietly. She focused on raising Jocelyn in the outside world, a world filled with choices, schools, friends, and freedom. Simple things became extraordinary: walking down a sidewalk without fear, speaking without whispering, sleeping without listening for footsteps. After her rescue, the world wanted to hear her voice. Journalists requested interviews. Cameras waited outside hospitals. Offers came from every direction. Amanda chose silence. For a long time, she did not speak publicly at all. Her story, she believed, belonged to her first, not to headlines. When she finally decided to speak, she did so on her own terms in her own time. Years later, she told her story in a memoir titled Hope, not to return to the past, but to reclaim her voice from it. Jocelyn grew up learning what her birth had meant, not through fear, but through truth told carefully, patiently, and with love. She was no longer the child of captivity. She was the child of survival. Amanda Berry did not disappear in 2003. She was taken. And in 2013, she came back. But what she carried with her, 10 stolen years, a childhood lost and a strength forged in silence, would echo for the rest of her life. Freedom did not erase the past, but it finally allowed the future to begin. She was taken in 2003. She returned in 2013. 10 years were stolen inside one locked house. A childhood vanished behind closed doors. A daughter was born into silence. Freedom did not erase the past. Justice did not give back what was lost. But survival gave her something no door could ever take again: her voice, her child, and her life. Next on True Echoes. Three girls vanished. One house kept their secrets. Behind one ordinary door, 10 years of silence were hidden. but the walls remember everything. Next, Gina DeJesus, The Vanishing Walk Home. The truth coming soon on True Echoes. Some stories don't end when freedom begins. They only change shape. What part of Amanda's story stayed with you the most? Tell me in the comments. And step into the echoes of truth. To be continued.